Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so on the government team, I do like to emphasize our team. I go over the team's leadership, all of our agents, the different specialists that we have as well, and kind of let my buyers know I don't wear a million different hats. So we have the ability to have somebody do our marketing, put the listings together, couriers that bring out our flyers and signs and that sort of thing, 2 full-time photographers and videographers, our closing coordinators. I always point out closing coordinators, I say they're my best friends. They're the ones that make sure that all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed and everything goes smoothly. Okay, so this is one that I'm going to start emphasizing a lot more, the home buying process. Currently, I talk about the buyer consultation. This is what we're doing right now. From there, we would decide on a working relationship with each other. And this is one that's going to become so important, especially within the next couple of months. I let my clients know, it's typically for a 6-month time frame. And then I talk about the commission as well. I never like there to be any confusion later on. And so I let them know what my commission is. And then say, if there is a difference from what the seller is willing to pay out, you will be responsible for the difference. The last thing that I want is for somebody to be writing an offer and then, come closing time and they're like, wait, why am I paying you? I thought the sellers pay this. This way I'm telling them up front, so there's no questions later. All right, do's and don'ts during the mortgage process. I always, I tell my clients, the lenders talk about this as well, but I always like to emphasize it. Do not change jobs or become self-employed. Do not buy a new car. Do not take out a new credit card unless you've talked to the lender ahead of time. I had a client one time who took out a Home Depot credit card and it postponed her closing for about 3 weeks. Fortunately, the sellers were generous enough to work with us and to let us postpone until we were able to close. But, something as small as that did affect her debt to income and affected her ability to take out a loan. All right. And then on our team, we do have a website or a CRM that I put all of my clients into. I let them know, as much as I think I'm at my computer 24 hours of the day, I'm not. And so this will give them an idea of number of bedrooms, bathrooms, location, the big details that they're looking for in their home. I let them know, if they tell me they're looking for a kitchen with wallpaper or an open floor plan, the search doesn't go that in depth, but it'll give us a general idea of what my clients are looking for. And from there, we can look at the photos and see if it's a good fit or not. I also tell them that I will be helping them. I'll be doing my own search as well and looking for homes, but it's just in case I can't get there first, that they've got the search set up. Okay, so writing an offer. This is my favorite part. So the strategies. We have financing. So you can either be contingent upon financing or not contingent upon financing. If you are not contingent upon financing, it could be a cash offer, or you are so certain that you'll be able to obtain your loan that you are willing to waive that finance contingency. I always recommend talking to the lender ahead of time and getting something called an underwritten pre-approval. So the underwritten pre-approval means that the lender already has all of the information that they need from you. It has gone through the underwriting process. And as long as you don't change jobs, buy a new car, or do something that will significantly change your finances, they're fairly certain that you'll be able to obtain your loan. And then contingent upon financing is the other way to go, that it's a less competitive option. But some people are a little, worried, or if their debt to income isn't as high, then they, might need to go that route. So the appraisal, I always ask my clients if they know what an appraisal is. So the bank will not loan you more than what the appraiser says the home is worth. So there are a couple of things that you can do with the appraisal. The top is the most competitive option, and that's waiving the appraisal rider. So in a normal market, you add a document onto the contract called your appraisal rider. So if the home does not appraise, you go back to negotiations with the seller, and either they come down to the appraised value or you meet somewhere in the middle.
But you tier this in terms of risk, like tolerance?
Yeah. Okay. Waiving the appraisal rider is the most competitive option, and it means that you do not have that ability to negotiate. So it's either a take it or leave it situation. And sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Right, yeah.
There's no leaving it.
Okay, so waiving the appraisal rider is whatever happens in the wherever the home comes back at, you're willing to cover the difference. You're willing to bridge that gap. The next most competitive option is bridging the gap by a certain dollar amount. And that's where you have to be most comfortable, or your buyer does. So are they willing to bridge the gap by $5,000 or $50,000, wherever it is that they feel comfortable? And then they know that if there is a larger gap than what they're bridging by, then you have the opportunity to go back to negotiations with the seller. Will they come down to that appraised or that gap value, or do you meet somewhere in the middle? And then the last option is adding the appraisal rider. And then next we have our inspections. So the first option is as is. I never recommend not having inspections. You know, this is a large investment that your clients are making. You want to make sure it's a sound investment. So you are telling your buyers, you know, you're not going to ask for any credits, repairs, or price reductions. You do have, this is the one that you do have the ability to take it or leave it. So as long as you follow the dates and deadlines within the contract, if you decide that there's too many issues with the home, you can walk away with your earnest money returned. The next option is not ask for any items under blank dollar amount. With this, it can be $500, it can be $5,000, wherever it is that the buyers feel comfortable. It's telling the sellers, I don't want to nitpick. Excuse me. So I'm not going to ask for a GSCI to be replaced or small dollar items. It's only if it's a larger dollar item that I'm willing to negotiate with the sellers. In addition to this, you can remove the walkaway clause. So if you are waiving that appraisal rider, where I skipped that part, you can move the walkaway clause. So you are telling the sellers, I'm so certain that I'll be able to, you're telling the sellers that you love this house so much that you are willing to remove the walkaway clause, which gives you the ability to, for any reason at all, you can have buyer's remorse. You can decide you don't like the paint colors anymore. You can walk away from the home as long as you purchase one home inspection. This is saying, I love the home so much, I'm not going to do that. Anything that comes back in the inspection report, I'm willing to negotiate with the sellers. If after the 10 days or after your inspection period or resolution period, if you still cannot come to an agreement, then the contract is terminated with your earnest money returned. And we don't have it on here, but the last option is doing your normal inspections. And then we have some extras in here. So the escalation clause, I never want to make assumptions. I don't ask, I ask them if they know what an escalation clause is, and then I can explain it. If you want to offer $350,000 for this home, but I'm willing to go $3,000 over the highest up to $400,000. I never recommend starting at the asking price. You still want to offer over asking. And you still want to give a good offer, but it's just saying if somebody else out there is going super high, you're willing to go a little bit higher than you would like to. All right, and then we have our love letter. So This is a letter to the seller telling them how much buyers love the home. I always say you want to tell a story, you want to paint a picture. You're no longer just a name on a piece of paper, you actually have a story to tell. So let them know how much your buyers love the home, how they can envision themselves living there. You know, if it has a nice patio in the backyard, I can imagine having family over on Friday nights and hanging out on the backyard and, you know, just painting that picture for them. Earnest money. This is typically 1% of the purchase price. Sorry, guys. Got a little tickle. So earnest money is typically 1% of the purchase price. If you can go higher than that, it does make your offer look stronger. It shows the buying power. And then shortening the inspection deadlines. In the contract, it's typically a 10-day inspection period, 10-day resolution period. If you can shorten that to 7 and 5 or whatever you feel comfortable with. You're telling the sellers, I don't want to elongate this process. I love the home. I just want to have the inspections done just to make sure that, you know, there's nothing huge, anything glaring. And then the refrigerator, the washer, and the dryer do not come with the home. So those are items that you would have to ask for in the contract. Okay, estimated cost from contract to closing. So other than the earnest money, these are all items in addition to your down payment. So the earnest money, like I mentioned, is typically 1% of the purchase price. And then you have your contract related fees, lender related fees, and title company fees. I will say that the fees on this page are on the lower end. It will probably be more costly than what this page is showing. And then we have the typical timeline from contract to closing. A lot of times, I don't go through this whole process. I just like to go through the first 10 days. Because the first 10 days of going under contract, there's a ton of information. You're kind of drinking from a fire hose and there's a lot to get done. So I want my clients to be aware of what that process looks like that first week and a half. So the first 10 days, your earnest money is due within the first 3 days. I typically send a link through trust funds. I let them know that there's an $8 convenience fee associated with that. That way they don't need to drive to the title company and deliver a check. Within those first 10 days, you need to verify the insurability of the home. Call your insurance provider, make sure the home is insurable. I do not need any of that information, and you have until closing to check in with different insurance providers and get the best rate. I just need the thumbs up or the thumbs down that you can or cannot obtain insurance. And then within those first 10 days, your home inspections need to be completed. And then you deliver or send the inspection notice to the sellers. So a lot to do within those first 10 days, just like to give them a heads up of what to expect. Okay, so that's pretty much all I go through in the flipping book. From there, yeah, having my assistant come in
Tech
for
assistant here.
reinforcements.
Is that what you want? Or do you want it there?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay, from here, a lot of times I go to my audio and I already have a set up for my clients. So here are all my clients. I go to their search. I go to their search and I review it with them and make sure that everything looks good. So let's say my client is looking for a home 450,000 to 650,000. They want at least 3 bedrooms. They're looking for at least 2 bathrooms. At least 1,400 square feet. They just want residential, and then I like making a map. Okay, so they're open to Chesterfield, Creveport, down to Kirkwood, over through Wildwood, and back up.
You're doing this with them?
Yes, so typically I have a general idea of what they're looking for, but then I go in detail and then we'll go back to the map search. Okay, is this exactly what you're looking for? Okay, no, we want to go a little bit north of here. We don't want to go past Manchester Road. So then I revise it. We go back down. There are 24 homes that match their search. Okay, well now I find out that they want a main floor primary bedroom. Okay, so now that brings it down to 12 homes. So we go over the results together. And then I let them know, I say, I don't own any of these homes. I want you to be completely brutally honest with me what you think about these homes. Just helps me catch a better vision of what you're looking for. So then when I am looking for a home for you, I know exactly what to look for and what your taste and style is. So we start going through the photos. They give me updates of what they like, what they dislike, and then homes that they like, I highlight. So
smart.
we go through, and then as I'm going through the homes, I give them the list price, bedrooms, bathrooms, and location. So then we go through photos. Okay, yes, I like this. So now we have 3 homes that they're interested in. I'll email these homes to them. If the homes are already available, okay, great. Let's schedule the showing right now and we'll go take a look at these 3 homes. It's an easy way to, they're already interested. Let's get them out and go see the homes. Okay, so then I email those homes to them. And then the next thing that I like to do is we take away the active and coming soon. Now we'll see what matches their search criteria and what has closed in the last 30 days. And there are 18 homes that potentially match their criteria that have sold in the last 30 days. So that's a pretty good amount. So I highlight all of them, I go down to print, and then we go to CMA. Okay, so now this is the page that I really like going through. You can tell people as many times as you want to hear, but I feel like a lot of times if you give them evidence, then it's a lot more, they're able to understand it more. So CDOM, this is cumulative days on the market. How long the home was on the market before it went under contract. SP percent of LP, that is the sold price percent of list price. So how much over or under asking price the home sold. So if we see CDOM, a lot of these sold single days on market. There are a couple triple days. It looks like only, a couple of them were double digits. All right, so this home was on the market for a week and sold about 5% under asking price. 4 days on the market, sold almost 13% over, 2% over, just under asking, at asking, 17.5% over asking, 15% over asking. So this just kind of gives you an idea of how competitive some of these homes are. And then the average sale price is, right around asking. But it kind of gives an idea. A lot of these homes that sold single days on the market did sell over asking. So if we see a home that you like and it's first weekend on the market, we might have to compete for that home. If it's been on the market for more than double digits, you typically have a little bit more room to negotiate. And then I asked if they would like me to email this to them. Typically, they say yes. And then this way they can look up the homes themselves. They can look at the photos and see, okay, well, this one sold 12% over asking, and it's exactly what I'm looking for. So for a home like this, I might have to compete.
So good.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. And then, yeah, I go over any questions they might have. And then, a lot of times if they're ready to go, we'll schedule the showings and go see the couple of homes that they had interest in. Yes.
What if there's like not many at all? What does that conversation look like?
So at that point you say, okay,
Question.
okay, so somebody asked if there aren't many homes on the market, what does that conversation look like? That conversation is saying, okay, you do have particular taste, or, there's not a ton of homes in the area that you're looking for. So when the right home comes on the market, we need to be ready to move. And that's where I emphasize again the strategy worksheet. Okay. And then we can see, those homes were very competitive because in that school district, the home doesn't come on the market very often. And there are a lot of people that want that school district. So you need to be ready to go. So, let's get our underwritten pre-approval. Let's, do items A, B, and C. So that way, we can hit the ground running. Recently I had a client looking in, she wanted Clayton School District and a single family home under $500,000. And we did find a home, and she was, well, what if I find something better after we go under contract? So that's where I went to my search. Let's take a look. We'll do it together. I don't know if we can. Sarah, I might need your help. How do you get rid of the one story? Okay.
Control.
So in the last year, under 500, at least 3 beds, at least 2 baths. What has sold in Clayton High School? No, that's, I think I just have my map there. So it's a beach shape. There are 9 homes that have sold matching that criteria in the last year. So, there aren't many. So, I said, you've got a home that you already like, let's go for this home. And then have them take a look at these other homes, would these have been a good fit? Would it not have been? And just set the expectations of, if this isn't the right home, when the right home does come on the market, we need to pounce on it. And I think it was really beneficial for her to see exactly how many homes came on the market that would have potentially matched her criteria. All right, I think we ran through it. So does anybody have any questions?
So how are you having the commission discussion, and how are you getting them to sign the buyer's agency now? In this market, like if they're ready to go, what is your line? What do you tell them?
So, I think I set the expectations ahead of time as far as the, this is how the length of time, this is my commission amount. And then, a lot of times we'll see the first house or two, and then I'll send that over to you for signing. I do also set the expectations, I'm not gonna hold you to this. You're not married to me. So if for some reason you don't think that I'm doing a good job for you, we're not working well together, you send me an email and say, I want to be released from this buyer's agency agreement. It's not something that I'm ever going to force you to. So I just say, I have to have it signed, in order to work with you, but it's not something that I'm going to keep you to if you're not going to be. So I think that kind of, relieves people a little bit to say, okay, well, I'm not forced to work with you if it turns out we're not working well together.
Is the timeline something that you talk through, or are you pretty stuck on 6-month timeline for the buyer agency?
If somebody is adamant, I'll definitely do house to house and it'll be a case by case scenario. Typically, I don't get any complaints about it.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Ask down there.
Does anybody have any questions? I don't.
Do you want to stop
Do
sharing?
you, you know how Brian Danny was talking to us today, saying that once he's working with a client, he has a arranged time that he's going to speak with them weekly or everything? Do you do that, or are you just pretty much, you don't feel like you need to do that, I mean.
I probably should, but it's not something that I say,
Set up.
okay, we're gonna
Touch
speak
base
again
on
at this
Wednesday,
time,
the
right?
10th,
Yeah.
And do you prefer to your buyer to sign the buyer's agency before you start showing them house?
Ideally, that would be great. However, I think a lot of times people want to make sure that, we work well together and I'm not gonna just drop the ball and,
You loosey goosey.
right. And so I do like to show them at least a home or two to say, okay, this is what I bring to the table. I don't know if that's gonna be changing, I guess, come July. So it might, but I won't be the only person going through that. So everybody will have that same issue. So I think it'll be easier to, have that discussion.
I've heard you say that before too, to some of your past clients where you said this is my commission. So if they're only paying out 2, you're gonna be responsible for that 7.7. I've heard you say that before, which is awesome because you come from strength and that's hard for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So,
I get nervous about things, and so I don't want to not say anything and then have somebody else ask me that question. And then it's like you're backpedaling or you're like trying to catch up. I'd rather be in front of it and set the expectations up front. So then, because I don't want them to think that I'm cheating them or trying to do something negative or, dishonest. And so I'd rather be upfront and honest and say, this is an extra expense that you're going to incur. Versus, oh, don't worry, the sellers pay for it. And then all of a sudden they look at their closing statement and realize they owe, however much money to me as well. And they're like, you didn't tell me that. No, this is something that we discussed during the buyer consultation.
right.
So, yeah.
How long are your buyer compensation strategy sessions typically in length?
About an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to recap the format. So you start with buyer book,
Yes.
then you go to strategy session specific sheet, then you go to Maris, then you end buyer book or?
No, so then I end with the CMA.
Okay, yeah.
And then go over questions with them
Mhm.
and then schedule the showings ideally and
Yeah,
head out
and
to
then
those
do
levels.
next steps basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And are you normally yours here in the office, or do you normally do Zoom, or do you do them at Panera or wherever?
I do not like going somewhere outside of either Zoom or the office.
Okay.
Or their home. I don't want a Starbucks or a restaurant or somewhere else because a lot of times it's noisy, it's hard to hear the person, and I don't think it's as professional.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a little more casual. And so I like it to be in more of a professional setting.
I think it depends. I think I've had some really good ones at Panera. I think if you get a booth and you get there early and you're sitting and I don't know, it's just the way I think you show up. If you show up, hey, so that, just kind of, I think if you're ready, and you have all your ducks in a row, it can be professional. And I've had a good one time at Starbucks and a couple times at Panera, but I try to get there when I know it's not gonna be lunch or something like that, where it's super busy, but I prefer doing them in the office or on Zoom.
Well, and a lot of times, I go over the flip book with them
Mhm.
and I go over all the documents with them. And so instead of turning my
Turning it,
computer and trying to
Mhm.
read and see everything, this way
Sure.
there's a screen in the office that they can view,
Mhm.
or over Zoom, we share the screen and they can see it that way.
Jim.
Oh, well, you mentioned the strategy worksheet and then also the flip book. Isn't that page in the flip
Yes.
book?
Yes.
So you just cover that
Yeah.
in the flip book?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But then
A lot of times I'll finish the flip book and then go back to the strategy worksheet page.
because are you actually actively having them fill this out, or are you just going over this and then during actually finding the first home and evaluating your strategy, then having them like review it again.
Correct.
Yeah, so then,
So I don't have them, fill it out and send it back to me because, it could be a case by case scenario. One home, they're willing to, waive the appraisal, but for another home, they like it, but they're not in love with it and not willing to do certain things. So yes, it is a case by case scenario. And then a lot of times they don't remember it. They don't have the book. Okay, well, at least I've gone through it with them one time. So they're fairly familiar. I'll resend them the strategy worksheet page, have them go over it together. And then if they have any questions, then we can review it together and go over it again.
well, and I will just say one of the reasons that Danny basically was the person who created this document was because we had scenarios, we've all kind of had scenarios where you're so quickly moving through writing an offer and you're trying to get it in because there's a deadline and you believe you went over something, but maybe didn't emphasize it as much as you needed to in the moment, and then you lose out. And then the client says, why didn't you tell me I could have done an escalation? Why didn't you tell me I could have shortened my... And so what this serves as is a checklist to ensure that we've given them all the options. We've provided them with everything. And that if they lose out, we can say, well, when we went over it, I know you had mentioned that you weren't comfortable with the escalation, and that's fine. But it ended up that's what got this one done. And we'll now know that for now. But a lot of what Danny's doing is CYA in terms of, hey, she's setting expectations. Here's what it looks like homes are selling for in the current market. And you need to decide if you have the appetite for that or not, if you're open to the risk of that or not. That's your choice. And I'm here to support you in that. But I want to make sure I'm setting expectations up front. And that's going to be huge with getting paid as well in commission.
So a story that I always tell my clients or my buyers when we go through this, as far as the love letter goes. I was helping my little brother find a home, and he at the time single guy, first time home buyer, and found a home. We wrote on it, and we were neck and neck with this other buyer. They decided to go with the other buyer because they had a love letter. And I was like, he's a young single guy. What story does he have to tell? And I didn't even bring it up to him. And after that, I was like, you know what, no matter who it is or what the situation is, I have to give them every option, and it's their decision what they want to do. And again, as far as the appraisal or inspections go, I can give my insider opinion, but it has to be what they're comfortable with. I don't want to say you should do as is, and then there's large issues and they're like, why'd you tell me to do as is?
Right.
This is what you feel most comfortable with, and I can tell you what I think will get it done. But at the end of the day, this is your decision.
It's like a menu.
Right, exactly.
I was just gonna say, so I've experienced a lot of times buyers really deferring to me, like, what would you do, or what do you think's best, or what do you think we should do to win this? How do you navigate that with obviously empowering them to make the decision, but also putting some...
Right. So a lot of times when they ask me, I think it comes to price. And I always say, I wish I had that answer for you, but for this home, it could be next door to their brother or sister, and they're willing to pay $20,000 over the next best offer because they love that home. In this market, it's so hard to tell where a home will sell. So you always have to put your best foot forward. If you found out somebody else bought the home for $100 more than you, would you say, oh, I would have gone up to blank price? And that's what your price needs to be. The other point that I like to make is communication is so important with the listing agent, with the other agent. I kind of always joke, and I would call the agent and I'd say, have I harassed you too much? Just to say, I call over and over, how does our offer look? Where do we stand? What do we need to do better? A lot of times I have clients resubmit their offer 2-3 times because, they find out another offer is more competitive. Sometimes the agent will say, just put your best foot forward. They don't give you a lot of information, but other agents do, and they'll give you a lot of insight, and it can really be helpful for your buyers.
And I have found a conversation versus text is so much more impactful on that.
Absolutely.
One, what you just said is so critical. Like, we need to actually put that. It's so important to say, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. Obviously, we don't know what the home's ultimately going to sell. But if you fast forward 3 days to after the acceptance deadline, if you hear the home sold for X, would you then have regret and say, I would have paid that? And ultimately, that's how we back into it. Where do you get to the point where you say, I no longer would have paid that? Because then you can sleep at night, I can sleep at night. We both, like, we did everything that we could, we left it all on the field.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it didn't work out, but we feel really good about it. And that, because the worst thing ever is to find out what it sold for, and then your buyer say, I would have paid that. And it's like,
Right.
Yeah.
so having that
even-
front.
Even recently, I've had a buyer, we knew that we're in competition, they went in at blank price. When they didn't get it, then they're like, well, can we write a backup? And then they write a backup and say, should we go higher? Well, you know, you should have gone higher but to begin with,
Right.
you know, like if you were comfortable with it,
Yeah.
you know, like a lot of times, you know, people don't want to like lose out on money, but it's like, would you rather lose out on the home? It depends how important the home is to you.
Well, and I do feel like it does kind of take sometimes one or two offers to understand the market, even though you've explained it. It's like,
Sure.
you know, because at the end of the day, who wants to spend more money than they have to, right?
Right.
So I get it, why they are reluctant the first or second time. I do, I get it.
Right, yeah.
You know, so you can walk through that with them. and
Well, and I think the best thing is when you do what Danny does and you do this strategy session,
Yeah.
you set expectations. And then I'm the same way. I'm like, I need to see it for myself. Is Danny really telling me this is this competitive?
Right.
And then once you see it and you're like, Danny was right about everything. Like there were multiple offers, and then you're so validated and they trust you. Like
Yes.
part of this is building that trust. And a lot of time they do have to see it for themselves. And maybe they get it on the first time and then it's a win, or and then they're like, can we review that again? And you're like, I got it. Yeah.
And I think that's also where the CMA comes into hand, is so that they can
Yeah.
see that. But a lot of times you're right, it does take losing out on a couple to say, okay, we really have to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is this a separate sheet you send to them, or you just go over in your strategy? Because it's kind of a cool thing to just kind of before every offer. Okay, let's go over
Yeah, do you
that.
have a PDF?
Yeah, that's really
I mean, I think so.
I took a screenshot of it one time
Just made a
and
PDF.
yeah, so then it's like one that I just, yeah.
I give a template that Madeline, just for our team. Actually, they're willing, if they want it, tell them they can have it too.
Okay, yeah, so we do have this offer strategy worksheets that if anybody is looking for it that is not on the Gelman team, let us know and we will send you a copy.
Like where you can put your picture. Danny's has her picture at the bottom. It's a full like, ask if there's any other questions, but
Does anybody else have any questions? I know in the room we've been asking a lot. Anybody online, just send it through the chat. Any of you guys?
No, that was really good. Do you feel like you've gotten better and better at this? Like, I mean, I'm sure that's an obvious, but you know, for some of us that have been agents, and not that you've been an agent for 10 years, you probably feel like you have been, but like, you probably didn't come out of the gate this confident as doing these buyer consultations and stuff. You've just practiced and.
Yeah, and I remember like the first buyer consultation. Well, I remember the first one that I had that did not go great. And you learn more and more each time you do it.
Sure.
But I do remember the confidence that I had once I started doing going into the MLS, looking up the photos of the homes, looking at the CMA. Because I think that really helps your credibility.
Sure.
And I don't think it's something that a lot of other agents are doing.
I think the CMA is super key for setting expectations. If we're looking in this area, this is how many homes have been on the market in the last year. This is what they sold. Okay, this is an average price, And you can see the ones we're looking at that are coming out, they're going way up, 12%, 17. I mean, one of those was 12, one was 17, one,
Yeah.
So if we see traffic at that home, you can bet that there's probably going to be major competition, and this is just proof of what we know.
Right, exactly. We see it every day. Our buyers don't.
Mhm.
So it's so important to tell them, what we see in the market. So.
Okay, what do you say to the person who says, well, I'm not paying over. Your buyer who's sitting there going, I think it's ridiculous if people are paying over. I don't think I want to pay over a list price on a home. That just seems like a waste of my money.
Totally understand that. What I would suggest we do is wait for a home that's been on the market for over a week.
Mhm.
If it make it past that first weekend hump, then we probably have more room to negotiate and not pay over asking. And,
Okay.
you know, it depends what type of appetite people have. Some people don't want to waive all their contingencies,
Yep.
which is, you know, completely valid and understandable. But, you know, it's not going to be the HGTV home. It might need some, you know,
Mhm.
might be a home that needs a little bit more work or, you know.
Yeah, and I would say it's similar to your investment risk, you know, sometimes certain people are willing to take more of a risk and then, you know, it's kind of that kind of idea.
Yeah.
All right, I guess, I love that you do the map with them, because I think that it's very participatory and they're owning the area that they're looking in. And then, but my question is, just because for us, for our CRM, then do you just basically take that map and recreate
Yes.
after? Okay, but then, I mean, I love that that's creating your action plan for next steps to say, let's go see these as well, because you've identified the homes that they're interested in, which I love. So I do really, really love the participatory aspect of that in the strategy session. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay. Yay. All right, Danny, great job. You're awesome.
How do I turn off the recording?
Yep.
Good job, girl.
Yes.